ahead.
Okay. This is Warren Vanderhill with the Center for Middletown Studies School Consolidation Project, and today I'm interviewing Muncie Mayor Dennis Tyler. The date is January 22nd, 2015, and I want to begin by thanking you for participating in this project. Now the second time that we've done one of these historical projects together.
Yes.
My first question, I guess, is the most obvious, and that is, when the school board began discussing closing Southside, what was your position on that?
Well, it was a very mixed emotion to me, Warren, because I grew up on the south side of Muncie, over just off of Memorial Drive, and went to Muncie Central High School. My two brothers went to Southside High School, and most of my friends all my life have been on the south side, and that Southside High School was such a historical piece of the south side history. So I had a lot of mixed emotions that, is there a better way to do this? Is there not a better way to do this? My biggest concern was what happens to our kids, and how do our kids come through this if it gets very difficult for the parents and others within our community to agree that something needs to be done with a potential Southside closure, merger, or whatever you want to call it. I had a lot of mixed emotions on it when it first started.
Why do you think, again, looking back and talking about your family history, why people still to this day, I think, tend to have so much allegiance and loyalty to Southside than the people on Northside ever had to Northside?
Well, that's a good question, but I think you know the history of Muncie about as well as anybody.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time when the south side community of Muncie was the economic engine for this entire city. The entire city was ran by the south side of Muncie with funding. They lost all of that over the years.
Yeah.
So I think as that trickled down and dwindled down, those jobs, those companies, I think that allegiance to that Southside High School became so much stronger.
Yeah.
And that was about all they had left to boast about and feel good about was that Southside High School. And then and I know you've done a lot of studies over the years, but
I agree with you completely.
And I think that probably most of the Southside people that you talk to would argue, for whatever the reason is, that the South Side of Muncie had been looked down on and neglected for many years. So that was probably, in their opinion, about the only thing they had left.
Yeah, it was almost, this came up in a couple of the interviews, but it certainly came up when I was interviewing Bev Kelly, a member of the school board. And I mean, their view is more, look, we've lost all these well-paying jobs. What we have left is what this high school really means to this part of town. And now you're going to take that away too.
Yeah.
So I think there was that kind of emotion that was involved in this.
Yeah.
And so you really understand that.
Oh, I do understand that, and those emotions ran high.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the emotion and the support for Southside High School, I watched it with their band and other programs over the years, you know, emotions ran high on that. And when you're talking about something that has that dramatic of an impact on a community, that's all they have left, we couldn't expect anything but those emotions to run high.
Yeah, I kind of use this image, which again your family have probably experienced, that there was a time in this town's history where you could graduate from Southside High School and 2 weeks later you had a really good paying job.
You could go anywhere.
Delco or something,
You could graduate from Southside and in 2 weeks' time, you could have you a very good paying job, get through that 30-day to 60-day orientation period, and if you was a good kid and really able to stand on your feet and work and put in a good 8 hours of work a day, you had a job for life.
Yeah.
And all of that was taken away.
It was almost seamless.
Yes. Yeah.
When I interviewed our mutual friend, school board member Debbie Fike, she mentioned that she had some meetings with you about the closing. And I'd like to have you, for the record, comment on what the purpose was of having meetings.
Sure. Debbie had reached out to me, and because she knew that I went to Muncie Central, grew up on the south side of Muncie, had strong support from both sides of town. And I think what she wanted to do was pick my brain and talk about it and the pros and cons and what maybe could happen or should happen. And we had a lot of very good conversations. And I know Debbie was very, very as straightforward and honest as she could be in trying to figure out what she thought was best for the kids
Yeah.
and for the community. And you know, Warren, a lot of this wasn't the community's fault. And,
Oh, no.
you know,
No.
we could sit around all day long and
Sure.
argue, has the school board and the administration managed their dollars over the years the way they should have and everything. But the truth of the matter is, with the tax caps and the increasing burden of those caps on our, particularly our public schools, and the way that they're funded, there were some decidedly
Yeah.
tough decisions that had to be made. And Debbie and I met a number of times
Yeah.
and talked about some of them, as Bev Cowley and
Yeah, right.
other board members and I had talked about a few times.
Well, then to bring that a little bit to closure, what finally convinced you that the merger of the two high schools was a good thing?
When I saw the kids.
Okay.
When I saw the kids. You know, the night that the school board made their decision, the first thing that I posted on the City of Muncie's social media websites and mine was, we now have to be one Muncie.
Oh, okay. I want to get to that
Yeah,
symbol in a
and,
minute.
and whatever
Yeah.
whatever we do, we have to be one Muncie and for the kids. And I was invited to the opening day for Muncie Central. And I'd always said, after that decision was made, and even before that decision was made, if the parents will allow their children to work to make this work, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
The kids will adapt. We were all kids at one time or another.
sure.
And you always figure out ways to adapt when things are a little bit tough or whatever those challenges are. And I was convinced that they would. Well, the day that I was up at Central for the opening day, I watched all them kids running around there trying to find her locker. One had locked her locker up with the key inside it. And I mean, but I looked, and you couldn't tell a Southside kid from a Central kid. And all the stories about the violence and all the other issues that were going to happen, the kids have really stepped up to the plate. And you know, in retrospect on that too, the Ball Brothers Foundation doing what they did to step up and help the band with
Right,
uniforms and equipment and other things that they did, I think showed that there was a commitment that the community wanted this to work. And I think the kids have just done a fantastic job. We re-implemented the Mayor's Youth Council and watched those kids just really get involved. We've had classes of kids up here. I went over to talk to classes of students at Central. That's what's convinced me that it's going to work.
Okay. How well do you think that the school board and the school administration handled the closing? You know, you can be blunt.
I think on an issue like that, probably about as well as they could have. You know, I don't know a lot of the inner dealings that went on. As I told the news media a number of times, it wasn't my role to get involved with them. They were all elected officials, just as I am. And it wasn't my role to get in and try to micromanage them or find out what they were thinking or not thinking. I just felt like that would create even more problems. I guess we could probably all second guess some of their ideas and that as they went forward with their challenges. But at the end of the day, I think that they tried to make as good a decision as they could make. We may not like it, and only time will tell if it's really going to work or not. But I think we'll be okay if we focus on the kids.
But I think it's fair to say, and I've said this to everybody I've interviewed, you're really dealing with a fiscal reality.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, my understanding is this year, by the end of this year, Muncie Community Schools has to find another way to cut about $7 to $8 million out of their budget.
That is true.
Okay?
Yeah.
Let's just say they got to get rid of 85 teachers
Yeah.
at $50,000 or $60,000 a year.
And close some more schools.
And close some more schools.
Yeah.
What's that going to get us? We lay off all those teachers. We lay off all those employees. That raises our unemployment. Those people maybe end up leaving our community.
Right.
We lessen the structure of our school system. And Warren, I can tell you as mayor, there isn't anything more important to our economic revival and survival than a good, strong public school system.
We'll get to that specifically.
Sure.
But you're right.
Yeah.
You mentioned this briefly, but I want to get it into this context. Do you like the One Muncie campaign?
I love it.
Okay. Do you think it's
I
a
love
good
it.
thing for the community?
I do. I do. You know, I was talking about that from the day I took office.
Okay.
Imagine the possibilities when we work together, and that's One Muncie.
Right.
and it's worked, and I think that helped some people try to work through this as we were dealing with this challenge on the conversation regarding schools, and I think that's made a difference. But I do like that theme of One Muncie. Yeah.
Okay. So you think it's just as operative for the community as a whole as it is for the school system?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I talked to a group of people a few weeks ago, and I don't know how this happened, because, like I said, I grew up on the south side of Muncie, walked to school or took a bus to get to Muncie Central, and we didn't have barriers. Muncie was just Muncie. We didn't have barriers. Somehow, some way along the line, there became a barrier at the underpass, and there became a barrier at White River. I'm sure you've heard it more than once out there in the Ball State community from professors and that talking to their students. Don't go on the other side of the river.
Okay.
Whatever you do, don't go beyond the underpass. Well, those types of things bother me. And so, you know, the One Muncie theme, if we could get back to One Muncie and break those barriers down at the underpass and at White River, at the end of the day, I think we're all much better off. If we can get Ball State University over into the Congerville area and farther southeast and southwest, I think Ball State's better off for that, and I think Muncie's better off for that.
Well, I think there are a lot of people at the university that think that's true.
Yes.
Do you think that the average Muncie citizen understands the difficult financial situation that the schools are in?
Golly, I would hope so, but probably not. About the only way they're going to understand that is if they really got involved in it. There was so much misinformation for that.
Right.
Excuse me. And I don't have to tell you, misinformation grows much faster than true information does. For whatever reason, and maybe it's because it's negative, but it does. I didn't pick up that people were truly as informed as they could have and should have been heading into this.
Yeah. Go back to the days of yesteryear when you were in the General Assembly. When you were there, and especially working on the House Ways and Means Committee, did you see the implications that some of the things like vouchers and charters and the tax caps were going to have on communities like Muncie?
I think we saw some of it, but remember at the time that we were discussing the issue with the circuit breakers and the tax caps, there was a horrible problem with assessments all over the state.
Right.
I mean, in a large township, assessments being done much different in one township compared to another township. And trying to come up with a way to standardize that made it fair across the board, and trying to stabilize things for seniors and people on fixed incomes. But also remember too, Warren, at the same time, nobody was discussing charters or vouchers or taking all this other money away from our public schools. And so when you take what the tax caps did to some extent, before we got into the General Assembly taking over the general fund portion of public schools, then when you start adding on the cuts on, they want to say the money following the kid with the vouchers and that with the private schools, that's created a huge problem for them. And I never thought that education should become a competition. And in some ways it has, and then who can sell themselves the best rather than who can give a good education. And my argument always has been, and it will always be, Warren, kids in Muncie are as smart as kids in other communities, just as other poorer communities are. But we may not have the tools. And the only way we can put those tools in place is we've got to have the funds to do that.
Sure.
And if we're not willing to do that and invest in them kids, it's going to be very difficult. And you know, when you and I were kids, there wasn't nearly as many single parent families as there is today.
That's right.
And that puts a heck of a burden and a strain on them kids. But no, you know, I worked extremely hard with Bill Crawford. Bill was the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, to make sure, as we was dealing with these caps and different things, that we was writing some things in for seniors and that, to make sure that they were protected in a way for their personal property and that. So I felt pretty good about all that. And then when you looked at the original part of that, the 1, 2, and 3 wasn't that dramatic. What really hit home was the 2%. But it's the charters and vouchers have been I know, and if you would talk to Tim Heller and Mark Burkhardt, they'd probably tell you the same thing.
Well, it's for them, it's been a killer.
Yeah.
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 I mean, do you personally think that having vouchers and charters are a necessary thing as far as the school system is concerned?
You know, that's a hard question to answer. No, I don't. See,
Well, you're a product of the public schools.
I am a product of the public schools. And here is the other challenge. When I was a kid, or to a single parent or parents today, they may not, my mother and my father could not have taken a voucher and gotten me to a county school.
Right.
They couldn't, because they had to work.
Right.
There wasn't any way in the world that they could.
That's right.
And that's a lot of the same thing today. So the people that may not have the resources to get their children to those other schools are never going to benefit from school choice.
Yeah.
They're just not going to
Even,
benefit
even
from
with
school
Burris at
choice.
Ball State, I mean, I'm always amazed. And with the academy. I mean, you got people that live in Newcastle that drive their kids to the academy or to Burris.
Well, sure, sure. You know, and I'm okay with that if that's what they want to do. But, you know, what is wrong with Muncie Central? You know, Muncie Central is an A-rated high school.
Yeah.
It's an A-rated high school. So what's wrong with it? I would hate to think that it's the diversity that's within the school.
Yeah.
But that's probably a program for
But the
you to look
diversity,
into.
the diversity is part of what reality is in American society.
And the more diversity that you can be involved in, the more opportunity you're going to truly have to be successful as you get older too.
What role do you think that a K-12 education system plays in economic development? I know that's very dear to your heart.
It's amazing. Honest to gosh, you know, there's nothing more important to a community like Muncie, or if it's Carmel, or whoever it is throughout the state. There's 3 key issues to being successful today for economic development initiatives: is a strong public school system, a strong parks and infrastructure system. If you have those 3 pieces of that puzzle to really improve quality of place and quality of life, to create sustainability in your community, you're way ahead of the curve.
Yeah. They're currently, as you're well aware, in the process in the Muncie schools of looking for a new superintendent and a new chief financial officer. I guess try to be gentle about this. How do you go about, shall we say, expressing your interest in these positions as mayor of Muncie?
Well, one, I haven't been asked by the school board or the administration or anybody to be involved. If they are looking at ideas, I would appreciate having the opportunity to be involved in the conversation, because that school system is extremely important to the city of Muncie, and I am the mayor of Muncie. I would hope, and I would encourage the school board and the administration, but particularly the school board, to really look outside the box. I think that the city of Muncie, and Muncie Community Schools, Ball State University, and all of us, I think the stars are lined up right for us to make a huge leap of faith forward. But I think the next 2 to 5 to 7 to 10 years are going to be critical.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And I think that nothing could be more important to having the proper superintendent in that position that understands the importance of the school system pertaining to economic development, quality of place, quality of life, how we tie that into our neighborhoods, how we market all that, and how we put that to forth, and then how do we brand it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's trying to build some bridges between the people in those senior administrative positions with the Muncie Community Schools and economic development. I mean, I asked Jay Julian how he felt about that. He certainly thought it was a very positive thing.
Yes.
I think you do.
Yes.
That you can't have isolation of, say, the mayor's office, the chamber, the university, the Muncie schools.
Right.
They can't be silos.
Right.
They've got to be able to work cooperatively.
Right. You know, and if Muncie is as serious as most of us know they are right now in leadership roles about a pre-kindergarten education system,
Yeah, right.
what better partner than using the Muncie Community School buildings to create that and figure out how we do that partnership with the city of Muncie, Ball State, Ivy Tech, the foundations, and really put something in place and let Muncie Community Schools be a strong partner in that. And I'm telling you, Warren, there isn't anything more important when developers and investors are looking in to see that you've got a strong school system. And it's critical for everybody to understand that and how that cycle works.
Well, that leads naturally to, I'm going to tell you, I did this with Jay Julian, so I'm going to do it with you too. This is a role play. I'm thinking of starting a business here or relocating my business. My business right now has 500 good paying jobs.
I want you.
What are you going to tell me about the school system as mayor of Muncie?
I could very honestly tell you that Muncie Community School System is a school system that has accepted every challenge that is put forward to them, and they're addressing those challenges in a very positive way and moving forward. Look at Muncie Central today in 2015 compared to 2012 and 2013. Look at where they're at today. Look at where they're at located in the heart of our city. Look at where we still have our elementary schools strategically located throughout our community to where we can have that networking that we have. And we still have 2 strong middle schools. If you look at Muncie Community Schools today and what we can do to help you partner for your employees that you're bringing in here, they would have the opportunity to have a very strong school system to work out of. And if you have employees that happen to have children with special needs, there isn't a better school corporation in the state of Indiana to deal with that.
Let me put it a little bit differently.
Okay.
What do you think now having one high school says about Muncie's economic future?
Yeah, that remains to be seen.
Okay.
I certainly don't see anything negative about it at this time. The population has accepted the one high school, that we're not dealing with any of the overflow issues. I guess what we need to look at is a long range planning program that in 10 or 15 years, if we have the opportunity to bring new jobs in, and if we would start bringing in 300 to 400 to 500 to 1,000 new jobs into our community, do we begin to burst at the seams again? And then if we do, then how do we begin to deal with it? But I think that they're probably as well equipped to deal with their future challenges as they need to right now, other than the fact that they got to figure out a way to find some additional cuts heading into this year.
Well, you mentioned that. I'm going to go back to that because one of the questions I posed to Superintendent Heller was, look at all the heat that you took for closing Southside High School. You know, and I know that within the foreseeable future, you're going to have to close more schools. Why didn't you just take a bigger bite of the apple and close this elementary, that elementary, and Southside?
Yeah.
Did that ever occur to you? Because you know they're going to have to do
Well, it could be. Now, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't as aware that they had this multi-million-dollar cut that they had to have by the end of this year. But I also know from the studies that I saw when I was in the General Assembly, 2015 is supposed to be the tipping point.
Right.
And from 2016 on, things are supposed to pretty much balance themselves out. My guess is if I was sitting in their position and I knew that, my biggest fear would have been total chaos.
Okay.
Because, I mean, what if they'd have said, okay, we're going to close Southside, and then I'm just going to throw out some,
Yeah.
and then they say, well, maybe we need to close Mitchell, and maybe we need to close Grissom, and then maybe we need to look at closing Sutton. Then you're talking about total chaos throughout a community, and that may have been very hard for us to have overcome for a number of years, and it may have been very destructive.
Well, I'll be a little tougher on you than that because you're a Southside guy.
Yeah,
To do that, you were closing Southside High School.
yeah,
Now you're talking about closing some schools on the north side of
yeah,
town.
yeah.
Do you think there are some implications to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, there would be. Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look, and I've seen some very interesting studies this last year, that, as a matter of fact, Phil Tevis has done one. If you look at the struggling neighborhoods in our community today, all of them has lost their elementary school.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a direct correlation to some of that. Whether we want to put our head in the sand and say no, there isn't, or not, there is. When those kids lose that ability to walk to school in a safe environment and have and it's just a few blocks down the street, I think things begin to change dramatically. You know, I never really had to worry about taking a bus to school when I was a kid
I don't
because
either.
they were all so close to us.
You've used the magic word.
Yeah.
Walk to school.
Yeah.
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 That's a very, very different way of looking at this because the whole concept of neighborhood school, once you begin closing these elementary schools, then you're either got to get in a car or get in a bus and go someplace else.
Yeah. You don't walk, you don't ride a bicycle, you don't get that exercise, you know.
Yeah, there's something.
A lot of things begin to change. Yeah.
Well, those are the only formal questions I had, but I want to give you an opportunity, as I do with all the people I interview, to ask you to add anything you'd like. I mean, as you look at this from the perspective of being mayor of this community, you might want to give me some final comments to sort of pull all this together.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say, Warren, is one of the things that I've recognized that is so positive for this first 3 years of my administration is the people. The people in this community are pretty amazing. And you tie that in with the private sector and the public sector and the foundations. It's evident that we have a lot of good people in this community that really, really care about this community. And I heard a comment a few days ago, and I've mentioned it to some people a couple different times. And the comment is that there's a million ways to say no. But it only takes one yes to truly make a positive difference. And I would encourage people in Muncie to continue to work together to make a positive difference for everybody. Doesn't make any difference what your faith is, what your color is, what your beliefs are, what your preferences are. But as a community, if we can continue to come together from birth to whatever our age is and work together, we'll be a much better community at the end of the day because of it. And we're getting there, and I'm very proud of our community.
I would agree. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Warren. Good to see you.
You off?